Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is the Tim Laskus Show. And yes, I am Tim Laskus, and this is episode 19. And today's featured guest is Alex Hofeldt. And Alex is from Illinois. Illinois. It's Illinois, I believe. Yeah, he's from Illinois. And he's a science teacher, a coach, and a deep thinker. And he's actually a very fun guy to talk to. We talk about jumping into frozen lakes and swimming and just stripping down to your undies and jumping on in there like a fool. I don't know what they call that, like polar ice diving, jumping, something like that. But we talk about that. We talk about business, and we even talk about Sasquatch. Is he real? So you better tune in and find out, because Alex has got the answer. Enjoy.
The Tim Laskus Show, in search of entrepreneurial gold. Tim digs deep into the minds of his guests, entertaining, down to earth, and informative. Now, here's your host, Tim Laskus.
Welcome, everyone, to the Tim Laskus Show. Today, my guest is Alex Hofeldt. Alex, I didn't ask how to pronounce your last name.
You got it. That was perfect. I'm impressed.
Look at that. I usually screw things up, but I got that one. But anyway, Alex is a teacher, a coach, and a deep thinker. And Alex, thanks for being a part of the podcast today.
Yeah, man, my pleasure. It's always fun to get out here and get around.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, you were telling me you're up in the north, and you like to go skinny dipping in the middle of the winter. Is that true?
I actually do a lot of cold therapy. I have a hole in my ice right now. I've been taking cold showers for over 2 years now.
Oh, so you must be in the Wim Hof, huh?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, there you go. See, we all have this. We all know the same things, right? We're all in the same circles. It's funny.
Yeah, I love that guy. I don't know where I first saw him. I know he was on the Joe Rogan show, and I think he was on Lewis Howes, and he
gets around. I think mine was with Ferriss. I think I heard him on the Tim Ferriss show first.
I think I did hear him on that as well, and he just sounds like he sounds like a trip. I mean, he just sounds like a lot of fun to be around with. He loves to cut up, and you can tell he lets loose. He's definitely one of a kind.
Yeah, he's an interesting cat for sure.
So was that when you got your kind of intro to jumping into cold water? And
yeah, as a yoga teacher, we do the mindfulness, and I work with what we call pranayamas. I work with breathing, but I had heard about cold showers a little bit probably from like Dave Asprey, and I have a tendency to run hot at night, and I know that if I'm hot, I don't sleep well, so I dabbled with cold showers, but really getting into the extreme cold therapy, aside from just an ice bath here and there and trying to daily practice with it, that's been pretty recent. And then getting to live on the lake, it's been really fun to get to jump in the ice, and I'm assuming my neighbors just think I'm a weirdo out there. Weird blonde kid that's cutting holes in the ice and diving in and then running into his house screaming. But no, yeah, it's great. I love it. It's kind of just a part of my day now.
That is awesome. I tried to do the kind of the ice, well, not an ice bath, but an ice shower. I'll turn that sucker on hot and run it on me, and then I'll just like turn it real cold for a second. And man, I can just get my head under it, and then I'm like already shaking. I really can't get my whole body submerged. I just can't force myself.
It gets easier if you're interested. Like it does. I don't know if it's like willpower or what goes on, but I find it easier and easier to get underneath the shower now. And it just becomes a part of just taking a deep breath and step in and then slowly exhale, and it kind of becomes invigorating. There's some days where you're just like, oh my God, I don't feel like doing this right now, but I've been able to usually power through it. I like it best in the morning. It's kind of I've been doing breathing in the morning and then jumping in the cold shower before the coffee, and that's been pretty cool. I actually really like it in the morning more than at night.
Well, it does seem to change your neurochemistry, and things are happening when you jump into that cold water.
Yeah, for sure.
And you do feel alive. I mean, you feel good for a while. It's almost like drinking a Red Bull.
Yeah.
So, all right, there's a tip for everyone. Don't stop spending your money on Red Bulls and jump in the cold shower.
Oh, dag yeah, coffee, buttered coffee. Get the bulletproof coffee rolling. I've been drinking that for like 4 years now, so I'm into all those weird things.
So you're into like yoga and paddleboarding, and you just got like a fitness nut, huh?
I'm into moving. Yeah, I dig just movement. Like my whole world of science and stuff. I got really into science when I got into the human body and learning about what the body's capable of. So yeah, my life is a lot about trying to fully express my dynamic living and therefore learn what I'm doing, and so I can teach others and help others express theirs, and just kind of goes in circles. But yeah, yoga, CrossFit. I used to be an extreme skier. I'm still into mountain biking a lot. I played college golf, so I've been all over the place of the fitness and sports maps.
Now, when you say extreme skiing, what does that entail?
Oh, I used to be back when I was cool. Now I'm 33. This was like when I was 23. I lived in Tahoe, and I used to compete all around here. Pretty much what you've seen on the X Games, like what the snowboarders do. I used to do the jumps and the rails and the powder skiing and stuff. But yeah, that was my jam. That's still my favorite thing to do in life. If I had limited time left to live, I would spend it all skiing.
That is awesome. When you were talking about that, I wasn't. For some reason, I thought that there's this Red Bull called Ice something where they have skates on and it's almost like
oh yeah, the race. I know exactly what you're talking about.
And they're like jamming each other as they go down this like slalom course.
Yeah, that stuff's crazy.
I mean, it's almost like roller derby on ice meets like part ice
motocross and skier cross. Yeah, it's crazy. I can't think of what that's called either, but that's pretty wild stuff. I think Red Bull's not healthy. Like, I try not to drink Red Bull, but what Red Bull stands for and the videos and the media and the stuff that they produce is just righteous. Like, that's one of my favorite things to watch is that Red Bull TV, and what all those pro athletes can do is just insane.
Yep, for sure. I can't get enough of that. Well, tell the listeners a little bit about what you're into as far as your professionally and your expertise and background. And I know that we were talking earlier about podcasting, and I'd like for you to share your story about that too.
Yeah, man. My core. I was raised by a dad who was a nerd jock, and he was a cool dude. So I've always been into science. So my main background is I'm a high school science teacher. Now I'm trying to get into the world, which I kind of am. I try and be a science communicator now, where I'm trying to get science to the masses. And my love of science has just grown year after year, day after day. And the more I teach it, the more stoked it makes me to be alive. And it's kind of where the message is going. My aspirations are to bring that message to people, to show them that even a basic understanding of nature, science, the cosmos, whatever it is you want, is arguably, in my opinion, the best motivational tool that's out there. So my podcast is called Beautiful Dust Specks, and I try and just take little tiny things that you may, sometimes they're elaborate topics, other times they're not. I take little things that you may not have thought of as being this wondrous thing and trying to spin it to give you a little background in the science, but then focus a lot more on the feel of the science, where if you just, peel back the little layers of the ordinary, they're truly extraordinary underneath. And then I use that to hopefully motivate people to, live happier and healthier, and that'll get them into my other worlds then, which is yoga and fitness and nutrition and those kind of things, and what I call yobility. I try and blend yoga and mobility worlds together, and just to keep people living pain-free, living fast, feeling good, sleeping well. It's just what it's about, just expressing both mind and body and rolling on.
Okay, you talked about being a science teacher and kind of understanding the world, and how do you explain Bigfoot or the Sasquatch? Does he exist?
I don't have any scientific data that can follow the scientific method to validate those things, so I probably couldn't. But if anything, it would be an evolved species. But species don't really exist in singulars. If you only have one male, they can't reproduce and perpetuate their species. So unless Bigfoot is really, really old, it doesn't make much sense to me. But I don't know. Have not partaken in it too much. I think I watched the Joe Rogan TV show on it one time, and that's the extent of my Bigfoot knowledge.
It's always funny because the pictures that people have, they're so nobody can get a clear picture. What is going on? Yeah. They're always blurry.
Bigfoot just doesn't like cameras, He's just camera shy.
Come on, there has to be somebody that can get a good shot. Everybody's got an iPhone these days.
Yeah, right.
Bigfoot, we would have got him, up close.
I'd record a video too. Like, why do camera when you can do a video? I feel like that'd be way more. You can freeze frame it later.
For sure. Now, as far as podcasting go, how did you get into podcasting, and how does that relate kind of what you were doing, your background in teaching in science?
Yeah, podcasting started as a listener. I'm always thirsty for knowledge, and the older I get, the more I just want to learn. And honestly, I bought a new car, and the car had the Stitcher radio app built in, and it was just kind of like, what's Stitcher? And then I just dove into that, and I think I discovered Radiolab first. That was the first podcast I fell in love with, which it's still my favorite show. So I just started listening, and it just, how it goes. You just go down the rabbit hole and you start finding new shows and learning new things. And for about 2 years, even prior, I started about a year ago now. I had a big hiatus when life got away from me for a little bit, but I started a year ago. But probably 2 years prior to that, I always thought, man, I'd really love to do this. And then always thought about it, had weird fears. I was worried about my voice because my parents told me I had a high voice. So I was worried about not having a radio voice, and just little creative fears like that. And actually I'd always talk about it with my students, and they'd make fun of me for telling, every time I heard you say you'd want to start a podcast, you could have started like 10 already. And one of my students wrote me this really, really nice letter, kind of goading me into doing it and telling me that I had to do it. And then my other friend bought me a microphone, and I had no more excuses. So I went out and I spent $400 on the logo. Like, I wanted to get a legitimate logo, and that was also a expensive thing to buy because then I had to do it. If I was going to spend all that money on a logo, there was no more excuses. So, yeah, it just kind of went on.
Yeah, so you took the dive, man.
Yeah.
You got pushed, basically. Your student said, man, shut up and just do it. They're like Nike, just do it.
Which was terrifying. I mean, that's the scariest thing. I mean, each episode, there's fear, there's a little bit of self-doubt, but most of it's love and excitement. But yeah, the starting's by far the scariest part. And I wish if I would have had it done over, I would have done a couple things differently, a little more intensely. I would have asked for help in these regards. But in my circles of friends, nobody had any clue what this stuff was. So trying to figure out RSS feeds and host sites and all this, it was just like, man, I just want to talk. So, but yeah, we started with it, and it grows every day, and I get better, and I hope I get better, and that's the mission, right? Just keep getting better.
Yeah, you just keep practicing, and you mentioned your fear, and that's a big one. A lot of people are thinking, who am I to be talking to anybody out there, or what do I even have to offer, or who am I to interview, certain people. And are you a member of Podcasters Paradise with JLD?
I was for a little while. Yeah, I did that for the first few months, but then a couple of things about it kind of tweaked me on it a little bit, and I also just couldn't afford it I couldn't afford the $100 a month. But I met a lot of really cool people. A lot of good relationships came out of that. It was really fun, but I just I do miss it. I was thinking about it the other day if I could somehow scrounge up the money to get back into that, but I did enjoy that. You can learn a lot from that, and honestly, if I would have had that when I first started, it probably would have been different. It was more of when I started, I didn't want to overthink it. I knew that if I overthought it, I would just drag my feet more. So it was more of just like a bare bones, set it up, just go with it and see what happens. And I didn't have the tendency. I have a tendency to go too hardcore into things and spend, buy like a $3,000 microphone and all this. And I was just like, keep it chill, keep it easy, and just see where it goes. And so, which had its good and bad parts of it,
Yeah, keeping it simple is definitely a great thing. And JLD often talked about the imposter syndrome, and he was spot on. When you get ready to begin, it's difficult. A lot of it is just a mental thing, and you talked about your voice, and everybody has a different voice, and I think most people can't stand the way they sound when they listen to to themselves, and that's just a normal thing. And so you've been doing this for about a year now, and so how many episodes are you into your podcast?
I just hit 50, but there was earlier in the year, I also coach boys and girls tennis for the high school. So for some unknown idiotic reason, I decided to get back into school, start a second master's degree, coach tennis, and train for my first marathon while also trying to do my podcast. So the podcast took a back seat to total burnout.
Yeah, you got a lot going on.
Yeah, it was a mistake. Yeah, it was. I have a little bit of regret on that, but I mean, we did it. I finished and stuff, but yeah, that didn't go well. So I took a big hiatus there. I'd like the numbers to be higher, but I'm trying to get back into being consistent. But I struggle with a lot of it. I struggle with the marketing. I struggle with the game more so than I struggle with the speaking. Like the speaking and the content is my jam. It's the other sides that I'm struggling with if I want to make this into something bigger that can be more of a standalone thing.
Right. Well, I'm sure there are listeners out there who are kind of toying around with starting their own podcast. Why should people start podcasting? What's the benefit?
I mean, if you got something to say, I truly don't. Mine struggles with I don't have anything to like lead into or to generate revenue off of, just because that's not where I'm at in my life yet. But for me, man, it's just art. Like I just felt like I had to say this, and it's fun too, because you get to say these things, and it also allows you to kind of face your fears and face your demons, which I think is a healthy thing to do. Like every single episode, you don't hear it on the microphone, hopefully, but there's fear and there's self-doubt, and I've hit record and stop 6 times per episode, and you just start to get comfortable and just do it. But if you got something to say, just the time is out there. Like we've never lived in a more knowledge driven time. We never lived in a world more where we can share our thoughts, our feelings, and our opinions with things and make relationships. Like you and I are meeting here over this technology, and I've got 5 or 6 digital friends now that I've interacted with simply through podcasting, and a few other fans of the show that have called in with just awesome stuff. Like I have my intro now was produced by a guy named Tom in England, and without sounding too braggy, he ended he got a hold of me and contacted me at my email and said that the motivational side of the show has in essence saved his life and his business and his happiness, you know, and you have no idea. It was just me shooting my voice at this microphone and hoping people like it, let alone, you know, physically admit that the show physically changed them like that. It's just awesome. So you never know. And am I getting 10,000 an episode? Am I sponsored? Am I monetizing it yet? No, but am I making relationships and am I getting my art out there and feel good about it? Yes. So what else can we do, right?
Yeah, well, that's a huge benefit. I mean, being able to impact someone's life is one of the most fulfilling things you can have in anything that you do. And for someone to come to you and say, hey, you know, I love that episode, or that information you shared really helped me out a lot, or, you know, I was going through a tough time and I was listening, you know, to your shows, and it just really, I look forward to it, you know, and it's that stuff that stays with you. And that's more meaningful even than the money. But also I believe what people, you know, will benefit from the podcast is the kind of benefit to your brand or maybe your product or service that you have. It just adds to it, so it can help kind of drive people to your website and to your services. It really solidifies yourself as an expert. And I think podcasting is the wild frontier. I think we're just in the initial stages, and I think that basically there's a land grab right now. And I would encourage everyone to go out there and get your piece, make your stake, because podcasting's here to stay. It's not a fad.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's kind of like it's exciting and discouraging as a podcaster, where you keep seeing like Katie Couric has a podcast, you know, Malcolm Gladwell has a podcast, like NBC News reporters and New York Times bestsellers, and it's like so. But I agree, man. It's just, if you're gonna do it, might as well do it now, because it's pretty crazy, and it'll probably find its rhythm. I think I agree. It's nowhere near its crescendo yet, but who knows what'll take place in the aftermath. But if you want to do it, man, do it. There's no reason not to.
So what have you learned? If you could go back in time and start your podcast again, what are a couple of things you would do differently with it?
I would have shored up the beginning a little bit more. I would have practiced a few episodes and not just posted the very first one that I had. I would have tried to done what JLD talked about, where you had 3 episodes ready and had a few more in the can, and I would have made it a little more systematic when I would have started. And then I also would have tried to be, I'm not the best at social media, so I would have tried harder to have more of a unveiling versus just like a, hey, friends on Facebook, like I started this thing, you know. I would have tried to make it a little more tangible in that regard. But and yeah, other than that, though, I mean, just I wouldn't bog too much down. It got really overwhelming for me really quickly when I started planning it and looking into all the things I needed. So in the end, I was just kind of glad that I got over the hurdle and just started. And everyone's like this. I mean, I've listened to pretty much every one of Tim Ferriss's shows, honestly. I think I've started. I remember finding it day one, and he's way better than he was at the beginning. Like, it's just human nature. You're going to grow and you're going to learn and you get better. So step one is just the start. So I would have started sooner.
Yeah. People keep kicking the can down the road and think they need to have, you mentioned your logo and, you know, and a website, and you really don't have to have the best kind of logo or the best website or the best microphone. You just need to have something that works and just start it. And then you just begin to evolve. And anyone who's had a podcast, even from, I listened to Joe Rogan's podcast, and he's really evolved. And as well known as he is, and you mentioned Tim Ferriss, and now Tony Robbins has a podcast, and
yeah, it's
just amazing how many people have used this medium to impact their listeners. But on this kind of journey that you've had and I would consider you an entrepreneur or a sidepreneur, because you're doing things on the side other than just kind of your main job, and you're looking to be able to kind of branch out. Do you follow any kind of self-help experts out there? Do you have anything that you could recommend that you've either read or someone who's been really, really helpful in your journey?
Yeah, I mean, this honestly, podcasts have really been the biggest focal point for me. Like I said, I've listened to a lot of Tim Ferriss shows and all the different guests on there. His new book's cool. That Tools of Titans is great, but I really I struggle to resonate. I don't always resonate with nonfiction. My girlfriend's really into it, so I kind of do it with her for fun. We were doing these like Daniel Laporte fire starter sessions have been kind of fun, and I've been trying to do some of the journaling activities and stuff like that. And actually, lately, what's coming to mind is again, Ferriss and all those guys. Ryan Holiday always talk about the Stoic philosophers, and that Marcus Aurelius Meditations book really is really good. That one I've really been enjoying. I've been crushing through that one as best as I can. So Yeah, I'd say that one to start, and then I'm trying to think what other nonfiction books I've read that have none of them really self-help. I like a lot of autobiographies. I think you can just kind of learn by experiencing other people's lives and hearing about what they've discovered, what they've struggled with, and what they've gone through. I can think of a few of the, like, Open from Andre Agassi was a great book. Seven Rings from Phil Jackson, the old NBA basketball coach, was really good. But yeah, I mean, just the podcast world honestly has helped me out the most. Just find shows with people that speak to you, and you kind of learn and adapt to who they are and who their guests are, and just be open minded and just know that it's just a sliding scale. You know, he's got to kind of embrace the chaos and see where it takes you.
Yeah, getting back to the podcast is I like to listen to podcasts because I can do other things while I'm listening. Whereas if I'm reading,
Totally.
then that I'm having to look at the book. I can't multitask or do anything else. So that's definitely one of the benefits. And you mentioned meditation, and you're also into yoga. And so how does meditation and yoga kind of go hand in hand? And because I hear a lot of people who you wouldn't think are a lot like mixed martial artists and other people who you just would not kind of picture them getting into a yoga pose and just kind of sitting there meditating. How do they go hand in hand, and what's the real benefit?
Well, I mean, I always enjoy my yoga philosophies because I'm very, like, science is kind of my religion. And science is all about right now this concept of neuroplasticity, that you are this malleable ball of your plastic, like your neurons and your cells and your extracellular matrix, even your myofascial. It adapts constantly to everything that you're doing. So when you practice things like meditation and mindfulness, you're ingraining into you neurological pathways that stimulate positive energy, good energies. Gratitude is really the best one, love, all these great things. And the true practice of yoga, which becomes very challenging for most of us, and I started yoga totally as a bro. I was just broing up on it. I was like, all right, lady, I'm just going to stretch. I'm not going to do your breathing. Like, I was doing all my curls and all my bro science kind of stuff. And then when you really get into yoga is more of an internal practice than even an external, which is very difficult for our Western civilizations and the way that we've been raised. And the two of them just start to intertwine. And for me, when I can be mindful on the mat or off the mat or doing whatever it is that I'm doing, it enlivens me and it wakens me up to my body, and it tells me certain things that are going on, and it just brings the body and the mind together. And if you're an entrepreneur and you're someone who wants to conquer the world and go out there, I mean, I don't think there's not a better tool that you have. Like, you got to take care of the mind and you got to take care of the body, and practices like yoga and fitness and nutrition and all this. And if you want to go to the finish line, you have to have a high powered car, and the two of them just totally integrate and intertwine, and it just allows for the fuzz and the static to go. And now science is blowing the door off this stuff, and it's becoming the norm now because the science is backing it up. They take these functional magnetic resonance scanners, and it can actually see the brain matter activity changing, and literally brain matter itself changing with just minimal amounts of meditation and mindfulness practice. And it's just powerful. It's just such a powerful thing, and it's free and it's easy and it's great. So yeah, I dig it. It's scary. It's like anything. You just got to start slow, just like a podcast. Start it, figure it out, ask for help, and find a guide, and just kind of go with it.
The science part of it and the research and the findings behind it seem to have really given it a kind of a firm footing for many people to say, wow, if scientists are really seeing a benefit into this, maybe there is something to it, that it's not just these kind of crazy guys or these people who are like to sit on mountaintops alone and just sit there and hum to themselves, and who knows what they're doing, smoke a lot of marijuana or whatever they're up there doing. It's kind of, people have that kind of either that false idea about the people who practice it, but then science came along and really supported a lot of the benefits of this. And then you had some other people who you wouldn't identify as being kind of into yoga getting into it, and they made it cool. So yoga is definitely cool these days.
Yeah, yoga is definitely sexy. And I think a lot of the guys we look up to and the big entrepreneurs and the movers and shakers, I think they've been doing it forever. And it's just, for some reason right now, it's coming out of the closet. And if you read Tim Ferriss's Tools of Titans book, it's his correlation of all these hundreds and hundreds of interviews that he's done. And at the beginning, it talks about what they all have in common. And it's pretty much I think he said something like 95% of everyone in that book. And these are people that you'd look up to in health, fitness, wellness. Like, they're huge huge, like it says, they're titans. He says that 95% of them have some kind of mindfulness practice, or at least had a mindfulness practice, and now they think that it's gone inwards to them to the point where they don't really need to practice it anymore, that it just manifests in their daily lives. And that sounds wonderful. That sounds great. And we live in a busy world, man, and our brains, most of the people that are your listeners and people like you and me, like, we're very good at going 0 to 60. Like, we're always good at accelerating, like get up, we're ready to go, hit the bed, take the cold shower, slam some coffee and go. But we rarely take the time to go 60 to 0, because we think of that as a weakness. We think of that as slow time, or time that we're not progressing. And being able to go 60 to 0 it permeates through so many different facets of your life, like health, happiness, and the big S word, the good old sleep and stuff. And it just, you start to see it when you start. That's what science does for me, is it shows me that I'm just this well-rounded, pliable, malleable ball of clay, and I need to look at it from all different angles.
Mm-hmm. And entrepreneurship is a marathon, and it's not a sprint. And being able to incorporate something as great as yoga and meditation will help you have that long distance success. And that's for sure. So, but speaking of entrepreneurship, what kind of messages did you receive growing up about being an entrepreneur? Was this something, did you have anyone in your family that you kind of looked up to that was one, or you just had maybe a role model outside of the family?
Yeah, man, that's a great question. Honestly, I really didn't in terms of entrepreneurs. I just had wonderful parents. Both of my parents were high school teachers, and knowing what a high school teacher is now, and knowing what it means to coach now. Like, I recently told my dad, I don't know how he did it. I don't know how he coached 3 sports and coached all my sports and all my sister's sports and taught chemistry. It's just crazy what our parents used to do for us, and we just never even we don't even think about it as kids. But I mean, they were my role models. They were not entrepreneurs by any means. They were just very good at what they did. Later in life, like, I went through some issues in high school with like bullying and stuff like that. And then when I started finally in mid-college, I got out of my shell, and I got into this idea of, I got tired of being single-sided. Like, I wanted to be a Renaissance man. I wanted to not just be into one type of music or one type of book or one type of sport. I wanted to figure out how to not only do, but how to get good at almost anything that I do. And it's kind of a blessing and a curse for me. People call it obsessive. I call it passionate about whatever it is I get into. But, in college, I got into Frisbee golf, and within a month I was on the club team and traveling around Illinois playing Frisbee tournaments, I just kind of always did that. And now my role models are really anybody that's making a difference, anyone that's being creative. And I look up to entrepreneurs that are making the world better, not just making dollars. Like, if they can do both, that's awesome. That's the dream for me. But there's just so many people to look up to now, because our world's just so connected, and you can listen to them on a show and never meet them, or see them on a YouTube channel or on television. You can just learn from them without actually getting to meet them. And it's just a cool time to be alive.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you, although, maybe not immediately in your family that you didn't have an entrepreneur that you necessarily looked up to, but it sounds like you have the entrepreneur DNA. You're willing to go out and try new things and jump in there, and you're not afraid to kind of really dedicate yourself. And it sounds like you've done that with all the things that you do.
Oh yeah, definitely. Which my parents instilled that in me. Like, they definitely did. They were, my dad was a big geek. My mom taught me how to cook. We always learned, and I think that's the fundamental thing for anything. Is just think, learn, and be curious. And you're an entrepreneur. It'll lead you somewhere.
Man, that's well said. When you were growing up, what kind of messages did you receive about money and finances? How to make money, or how to spend it, or how not to spend it, or how to grow it, how to make $1 into $2?
No, I kind of wish I would have known more about that, or taken that more seriously. We lived a life of we were upper middle class. Like, we were super happy. We enjoyed our money. Like, we weren't frivolous by any means, but I definitely wanted nice things. And as I got older in life, I realized how silly it was sometimes that I needed like the best of everything when I could have saved money on X, Y, or Z. But yeah, my family did not teach me a whole ton about how to make money, like $1 into $2. And even at this point in life, I'm 33 now, and I'm starting to wonder if I should even look into it more, like the power of how to make the money work for itself. But we just kind of lived at a big money pool. Like, everyone's dollars were the same in the family, and we spent it together, and we used it to buy good times times. And I think my family, without saying it, kind of had the, don't spend all your money making time kind of thing. Use the money that we have and make sure that we have some good memories and stuff. And I have no regrets about childhood with that. It'd be nice to have more of a knowledge of how to save and do all that. But we've done some good things. They taught us, my parents got us a credit card really young in our name, so then they pretty much paid for that would just be for gas and various things, and they took care of it, so we get a credit score. And they helped both my sister and I get a cheap little house during that Obama first time home buyers thing as an investment. They taught us about not renting. So it's kind of funny you're telling me this. I'm thinking like, no, my parents didn't teach me anything, but I'm like, actually, they taught me quite a bit, didn't they?
You forgot about it, so you've explored it. It's kind of some of those hidden memories there.
Yeah, definitely. They were great. They were wonderful parents.
Well, let me ask you, when they bought you, or not bought you, but signed you up for a credit card, and I'm sure they would get the statements because they wanted to keep track of.
Oh yeah, totally.
Did they ever look on the statement and go, Alex, does this say alcohol? Are these cigarettes that you're buying?
No, they actually didn't, because it's pretty funny with life. And my mom always tells me stories where her friends would be flabbergasted by this, but really what it came down to was trust. And I knew that I respected my mom and loved them to the point where I knew that it was their money, and I knew that I had to respect it. And if I knew also, with the way my mom raised me, she would always give us nice things, and if we messed up, she'd take it away. And so I knew that it was always there. And even late in college, sometimes where I'd want a new video game or something, and I had her credit card, and I'd ask her if I could buy the video game or something. She's like, "Of course you can. You don't need to ask me." But so I was always just super respectful of the money. So I don't know if that strategy would work for all kids. I mean, I teach high school. Some of those kids I wouldn't trust with a credit card by any means, but I gained her trust, and that in any relationship of, husband, wife, mom, dad, son, daughter, whatever it is, like, you got to have trust, and they trusted me. So that trust allowed me to live well, and then it allowed me to permeate into a better credit score, because if we would have started doing that stuff, she would have taken it away in a heartbeat. I have no doubt in my mind about that. It would have been vicious.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you were a pretty good kid growing up, but I bet there's some listeners out there going, hell no, I wouldn't trust my kid with a credit card. They'd have a $14,000 bill. And I even heard something the other day, I guess because on like the iPhones, you can, with what, I don't play those games that they have on there, but I guess you can buy, I don't know, lives or points or
oh yeah,
something.
I'm a bit of a video gamer, and I've heard horror stories of that.
You know, the kids with like $14,000 bill for whatever they did with some game, and the parents were like almost had a heart attack.
Oh yeah, I can't even imagine. It's crazy. I play this little game called Clash Royale. It's like my one little vice on my phone, and I have friends that have, like, digital friends in the little clans you play with, who have spent like thousands of dollars on this little game. Like, it's crazy what people spend their money on these days.
Oh my goodness, that is
I think I've dropped 20 on it. I spent $10 on it twice, and I had a little coming to Jesus kind of moment with it. I was like, oh my God, do I really want to spend money on this stupid game? But I got to rank up my minor though, so got to do what you got to do sometimes.
Well, that was a good thing. The $20 stressed you out, so that
yeah,
you're
totally. It was a deal too. It was the sale. I didn't, it was a special event.
Well, speaking of stress, can you think back, in your journey through life, and think of a moment when you were mentally stressed and just strained, and how did you cope with it and get through it? We all have to deal with issues in life, and being able to manage is difficult for a lot of people. And can you think of a situation, either professionally or personally, where it was just mentally draining, and how did you get through it?
Yeah, I mean, earlier this year with all the marathon and master's degree and stuff, that was pretty mentally draining. And I actually go through right now, at this point in life, I'm actually going through some stuff that I'm trying to work through, where I've been teaching for 9 years, and right now I'm not super convinced that I can or want to teach as my whole life. Like, I kind of thought the teaching would always be the foundation, like in a classroom, for what I've done. So that's pretty stressful for me right now. But honestly, the way I get through it is I try and just keep smiling. I do my mindfulness. I have a gratitude journal. I lean on people that I love. Like, I have a girlfriend I've been dating for about 8 months now, who's just, I cherish. She's amazing. So she's always there to help me, and, just try and talk, and just kind of always trying to be self-aware, and that you have to embrace the chaos, and it is going to be a roller coaster. So for me, it's just kind of a progression of kind of just keep moving, and every once in a while the wheels will fall off the train, and I'll get super depressed, or I'll be really vicious or really mean to myself, and always trying to come back to this idea these things, honestly, the things that I preach on my podcast, where, the voice inside your head's got to be your biggest cheerleader. And the reality, the fact is that little voice in your head's probably your biggest hater in life. And I know mine is for sure. So I just try and just keep moving. And when I focus on the things that make me happy. So I know that if I'm better, if I have a little bit of a fitness routine, I'm better if I'm around people, I'm better if I can cook, and, if I'm eating well and sleeping well and stuff. And then it just slowly starts to degrade. It's the edges of the stress just start to like fade away. And I just try and control what I can control, and then try and breathe through the stuff that I can't. And it's just a sliding scale. It's just a process.
Well, you've shared some pretty powerful coping skills. It seems like you have a really clear insight into what helps you to manage stress. I mean, you mentioned having a support system, which is very, very helpful. And if you don't have that support system, go out and start building it today. And don't wait for things to fall down around you before you do that. You want to do it when you're feeling good, and start kind of plant, like, it's like going out and planting seeds in a field. You want to plant them before you're hungry, and so they'll be there when you need it. And you have a number of coping skills, and being able. You mentioned talking, especially for guys. We love to just kind of keep things to ourselves and not really talk, and that's important for us to kind of break out of that habit, is to get it off our chest. Not necessarily we want someone to tell us what to do, but just that process of being able to talk is cathartic, and it helps us just to kind of process what's going on, and we feel much better. And you said embrace chaos. A lot of people will just, at the first sign of chaos, they run. But for you embrace it, and it's been helpful for you, huh?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's my life motto lately. It's just kind of always come back to, and it's just exactly. It's like you're saying, and the communication thing is key. And I always make a joke. I have a secondary podcast which we're going to start here soon. We're going to call it Nerd Jock Radio. So like I always try and live this like little nerd jock life. And to me, a nerd jock is somebody I want to be a guy who is okay with his emotions and okay with his feelings. Like I don't need to cry and whimper and wave, but I don't need to. Guys, I think, get really stressed out all the time from having to be that alpha male, like, that person that we're supposed to be all the time. And if, right now I'm watching Downton Abbey with my girlfriend, and I love it, like I don't care. It's what I'm doing at night. It chills me out. It relaxes me. And is it super masculine and all that stuff? No, but it's actually kind of nice because it's this nice little show that we can watch together while doing other things, kind of. And it's no one's head's exploding, or no one's, chopping someone's face off with a sword, which I love those shows as well. But so yeah, man, the communication's great, and just kind of keep going with it. And the finding the support system is challenging. I think especially as guys, I've recently fallen into a couple circles that I've really started being able to grow within, and it's really been helping me. And a lot of times, you guys, I think, are surrounded by a lot of haters, and a lot of the people at my work and stuff with the podcast, it took me a long time to find support, because I think a lot of them just I always thought they kind of treated me like a cartoon character, like, oh, what are you into today, little guy? Like, ooh, a podcast, that's adorable. So for me, the big step back was that I had to get over that, and I had to take myself seriously, because that stuff will start to permeate into you really rapidly, and it starts to eat away at you. So if I want to create a podcast that's going to change the world, I need to believe that my podcast can change the world before anyone else does. And that's really been the biggest thing I'm trying to hang on to. And that's the biggest process. And it is a process. It takes time. So don't think you're just going to like wake up tomorrow and have all these fears go away. I mean, it takes work. It takes work and progress.
Well, Alex, you've been dropping a number of value bombs during this show, and that is cool. And it's just, as you're talking, and I'm thinking that you are so correct when you say you got to believe first, and also forget about what other people are thinking and what they're saying. It doesn't matter, because they can't make you or break you. We're the only ones that can make or break ourselves. We're the ones that are in charge of our lives, not the other people. And so we just have to be able to tune out all that just kind of static noise out there, because a lot of times they're saying stuff because it's really nothing to do with us, but it's about them. It's, they may not have the guts or the balls to go out there and start their own podcast and to make themselves kind of feel vulnerable, but by being out there. And so it's easy for them to go after someone else. So I think that's some great stuff that you just offered.
Yeah, man. Thanks.
And now that you've into your adulthood, you're a teacher, and you've started your podcast, and you're still working on your second master's degree, you said?
No, yeah, I got that done. Yeah, they're like They're fake education degrees. They don't work too much in the real world.
Well, you got those degrees.
Educational leadership and curriculum and instruction and stuff like that.
Hey, it's all good. So looking back at everything that you've done, what would you say is the most fulfilling thing that you've accomplished so far?
I don't know, man. Just the fact that I'm here. Honestly, like today, I'm the most fulfilled with. Like I've gotten better and better. I've enjoyed life more and more the older I've gotten. And when I really step back and look at what I've achieved today, and like my house and my friends and my family and my house and my life, and and starting the podcast, it's not perfect, but it's there. Like if I honestly, yeah, I'd say today is something that I'm the most happy about achieving. But I mean, the bachelor's degrees and the bachelor's degree in bio, getting through science was great. And you just kind of look back on life. I'm proud to have said that I've gotten through the ups and the downs, gone through some really dark times and some really light times, and it just always turns you into the person you are today. So hopefully the answer for most people would be they're content with right now more so than yesterday,
Yeah,
that's the goal.
And we're all lucky to be alive. I mean, if you're listening to this, you're alive, and unless there is a whole nother dimension that's listening that I'm not aware of, which could be. I don't know.
Have you ever heard about the probability of you being you? You ever heard these numbers?
No, what's this?
So these scientists they calculated it out, and it deals with if you remember meiosis at all from basic biology, and this crossing over takes place. So they do all this math of like the probability of you being you, and then your parents' probability of meeting each other, and it goes all the way back down. And it turns out that you getting to be you is a number that is 1 times 10 to the 2,685,000th. So it's 1 with 2,685 zeros after it, which is a huge number.
For you.
Yeah, and they actually quantify it out to what that would be equivalent to would be 2 million people standing in a room, each of them holding a trillion-sided dice. So 1 to a trillion is on this dice, and all 2 million of those people take it, shake their hands, roll the dice, throw it on the ground, and every single one of those dice, those 2 million trillion-sided die, all land on the same number. That's the probability of you getting to be you.
What? I've never heard anyone put it quite that way. That's damn incredible.
Yeah, isn't that insane? And I actually nerd me. If you really drill down on that, and that's not even taking into account like evolution, and it's not even taking into account like galactic evolution. You could get that number bigger, and you could get that number to be infinite. But in reality, in terms of probability, you're zero. Like that won't happen. it's just insane to think about like that. And so that's the science to me, man. That's the stuff that actually motivates me, and that's what makes me want to wake up and go conquer something.
Wow, that's mind blowing. And the way that you're able to kind of put that into words and perspective, I'm sure your students really benefit greatly by you being there and teaching them all this stuff.
I hope so.
Yeah. Well, Alex, we're at the end of the show, but before we go, I want you to tell the audience how they can contact you. Where can they find you? Where can they find your podcast or even find you in social media?
Yeah, man. The podcast is Beautiful Dust Specks, all three words. So Beautiful Dust Specks is on iTunes, it's on Google, it's on Stitcher. It's really on all of them. And then the easiest way to get a hold of me is beautifuldustspecks@gmail.com. And then what else we got? Facebook is /Beautiful Dust Specks. And then Twitter, I think, is just @Alex Hofeldt. I've switched that to Twitter, and Instagram is also @Beautiful Dust Specks. So any of those things, yeah, reach out to me. It's so fun. You know this stuff when our fans and our friends and people we meet through different shows actually reach out and have a conversation. It's just awesome. It's so much fun to be a part of.
Oh, for sure. So I definitely want everyone to go and visit Alex and listen to his podcast because it really is a good show. And Alex, it's been a lot of fun. And you know what? I'm going to stay in touch, and maybe one day I'll come up there and we're going to go jump in that. We'll cut a hole in the ice and we're going to jump in there. And
it's good. It'll be cold for a while, so I bet you got another month before when it's still thermo. And
I'm not talking about wetsuits or anything. I'm talking just stripping down to my underwear and just jumping right in.
Yeah, man. You go right in. You got the goal is 5 minutes. I've made it 2. 2 has been my record so far.
Hey, we'll put that on Facebook Live. I bet that'll get a lot.
That would be good. That would be a fun one. I'm in.
That'll be cool. All right, Alex. Thank you for your time. Take care, buddy.
All right, man. Peace.
Want more entrepreneurial tips? Go to timlaskus.com.